right, the recording is on. Welcome everyone to SQL Friday. This is number 44, and our star and my friend today is Damir Matesic, whose last name I can never learn to pronounce, so he's going to correct me, I'm sure. I got to know Damir when we organized Data Weekender a year ago, almost exactly. I think we started the preparations maybe a little more than a year ago, which was the first big data platform virtual conference after the global pandemic broke out. And since we are still in the situation of a global pandemic, we're going to do another Data Weekender in May. So I think you should all register for that one on www.dataweekender.com. You'll find the details to register. We are finalizing the schedule, and it looks pretty good this year too. I don't know how much I should say, but we have more than 40 tracks and also some a nice little surprise.
Tracks, but sessions more than.
Oh yeah, I said 42 tracks. That's wrong. We have 42 sessions, I think. But we also have a nice surprise, which we didn't have last time. So stay tuned for the schedule as well. It's coming out any day, I suppose. What do you say, Damir?
I will tell. Just let me check. I think yes, in 2 or 3 days we will have the possibility to release the schedule, because we picked actually the sessions, and right now we are actually waiting for speakers to confirm the availability.
Yeah,
and I can actually give you a hint, and that's that we are waiting for only. Just a second. We are waiting for 13 speakers.
All right. So maybe during the weekend we will have a confirmation from all. And then, but until then, me and Damir knows the schedule. For the rest of you, you just have to trust us when we say it's a damn good schedule. So just go and register. Anyway, I think that's maybe enough from my side about Data Weekender. Damir, except for being one of the Data Weekender organizers, he is also a data platform MVP. He lives in Croatia, and he is, anything T-SQL. I think Damir is into it, and I'm really looking forward to the presentation. The stage is yours. Just take over when you feel like it.
Let's try to share the desktop.
Yes.
If there will be luck. So, wrong one.
I see Windows Update.
Yes, that's normal, but that's the one I didn't want to share.
Okay.
Because actually I picked the correct one, but let's try one more time.
There we go. That's Management Studio. I'm more familiar with this view.
Great. So welcome everybody to the historical data with MS SQL SystemVersioned temporal tables. It's pretty confusing name, but we will discuss about this later. So Magnus already introduced me somehow, but I will just tell you that actually I was for many years a developer, mostly programming in ASP.NET using C#. And then I switched to SQL Server, and last few years I'm doing only SQL Server development, optimization, and design, whatever. I am for 9 years working for a Croatian company called Span, but we are working for the whole world. Exactly, and my role is senior database developer. I am co-leading the SQL Server Croatian user group, and we have, of course, meeting every month. We are not so like Magnus every week, but every month, and maybe you can find us on the net and listen to some presentations if you would like, of course. In 2019, with some friends, I organized the first SQL Saturday in Croatia. So last year we didn't have so much luck because of the pandemic, but the event was online. And this year, as maybe you know, SQL Saturday for now don't exist because PASS closed the doors. Currently, Redgate is trying to take over of that. And we will actually have Data Saturday Croatia this year in September. And I think that we are the only one that will try to make an in-person event. So if here are some speakers that would like to come to Croatia, maybe you are feel free to submit your sessions, of course. I am a co-founder of Data Weekender, as Magnus already told you, and I have my blog about SQL Server. I didn't actually write some articles in the last half a year because personally I would like to write about some new features in SQL Server, and as you probably know, the last version was released in 2019, so now we don't have new features, and we will see about that. Okay, enough about me. Let's jump to the main issue here. So first, we will see what SystemVersioned temporal tables are. Why do we need them? Some also solutions for that. Prerequisites and limitations. There are many of them. How it works. How you can query data. And of course, the demo. So what are SystemVersioned temporal tables? For example, it is a very confusing name. And actually, this is a built-in support for handling and archiving all versions of modified data over the time. It is introduced in SQL Server 2016. It involves two tables. You have the main table, so-called temporal table, and the history table. The history table has is associated with history table, into which the system records all prior versions of each record with their prior period of validity. Sorry. The value of each record at any point in time can be determined, and it allows us to time travel in the data or in the state of the data. Why do we need them? For example, for many reasons, like some reports, if you want to check trends over time, find some anomalies, to undo operations. If you want to go in the point of time of data, and for example, for auditing, of course. So what are the old solutions? Custom, you can use triggers, and it depends, but most of the time they are complex, expensive, limited, inflexible, inefficient, and etc., etc. So, prerequisites and limitations for the main table. The main table have to have a primary key must be defined, of course. You must have a start column, and this is a system time. You must have an end column, and this is a max date value. You must have defined a period. So it is a for system time defined with two date time, two columns, the start and the end. The column start and the end can be hidden, since you would not like to get them with select star, for example, if they could generate problems to your applications. For example, if the application accepts wants to get 10 columns, and then you add the history support, maybe you will get 12 columns then, the start and the end, and maybe your application will break up, so you can hide them. Limitations for the main table. So about data. The table cannot be file table and cannot contain file stream data type. Update, insert, and merge statement cannot reference any and modify period columns, of course. So you cannot touch the start and end date of the data. Triggers, instead of trigger, are not allowed. Truncate. Truncate table is not supported. Blob data types. The system version tables support blob data type, for example, nvarchar max, images, etc. But because of performance issues, meaning storage cost, it's better to take care when using these data types. Cascade. On delete cascade and on update cascade is not permitted on the current table. This limitation was removed from SQL Server 2017 CTP 2.0. So if you have 2016, it's not supported. After that, it's supported. Prerequisites and limitations for the history table. Constraints. The history table cannot have constraints defined. For example, primary keys, foreign keys, check constraints, table or column constraints, etc. Data. It cannot be a file table and cannot contain file stream data type. Modifications. Modifying data in the history table is not allowed. Alter or drop. You cannot, of course, alter or drop the history table. Of course, while this is turned on. Triggers. No instead of triggers, and after triggers are allowed. Not the history table. When the history table is created, so period definition, entity definition, indexes, statistics, check constraint, triggers, partitioning, configurations, permissions, row level security, and row level security predicates are not copied to the history table. Schema. It is the same as the main table. So exactly, data types, columns, and even column ordinal position is the same for the history table. Database. History table must be created in the same database as the current table. It is page compressed by default. Partitions. If the current table is partitioned, the history table is created on the default file group because partitioning configuration is not replicable automatically from the current table to the history table. Okay, warning. When we make a change to the temporal table, meaning the main table, the same changes are applied to the history table. So be aware, if you, for example, drop a column in the main table, the column will be automatically dropped in the history table. So you will actually lose the data. Okay, how it works. So the user wants to insert or bulk insert the data into the tables. So in that situation, the data is inserted only in the temporal tables. If the user, for example, update or delete records from the temporal tables, the system automatically make changes to the history table. And this is simple. Reading data. So if the user want to query the current data, only the temporal or the main table will be involved in this situation. But if you want to get temporal queries, for example, history, point in time, etc., also the history table will be involved in this situation. Later on the demos, we will show this in the execution plan. So how can we query system version temporal table? For example, if you write select star from the table, you will get all the data from the main table, of course. You can use, to get all the data, you can use this syntax here, select star from the table for system time all. In this situation, the system will make like an union of the main and the history data. If you want to get the data in some point of time, you can use this syntax here. So select star from table. Okay, star is not required, but it's easier for the demo. Select star from the table for system time as off, and you can type and the date and time that you want to get the data. Of course, this here on the slides, you can see what the data will be returned. And we have some other types of usage of that. We will not show them, any of these, but I just will show you here. So you have contained in, when actually you can specify more than one parameter. The first one is start date time and end date time, and the result will be as explained here. One more is that you can actually use from start date time to end date time. So meaning that the period start time will be greater than search start date time, and the period end time will be smaller than search end date time. And the last way to get the data from SystemVersioned temporal table is between, using between, and here you can see what will be the result. Of course, I will send to Magnus the slides later on, so I think that you will be able to download them and see this, what I was talking now. And let's jump to the demo, the funny part. Okay, is it readable, Magnus?
I think it is, yes.
Okay, let's create demo database. Just, oops, I already did a mistake. Okay, statistics. So I will create a normal table, PBOT table, and I'm specified with system versioning on. And of course, since I didn't meet all the prerequisites needed, I get a nice error. Okay, let's see what requires to create a system version table. I must have a valid from. The name is custom, of course. Date time to generate it always as row start, and valid to date time to generate it always as row end, and a period for system time between these two columns. And I'm trying to create this system version time again. Let's run the demo. Something is created. And now let's take a look at here. So I have my first system version table. You see this is the main table. The icon is a little different. You have this clock. And of course, in Management Studio, you can see the history table. And since I didn't specify the exact name I want to have for the history table, the system has some logic of generating this. So actually you get MS SQL, temporal history table 4, and the ID of the main table, of course. I will show you the properties of this table. And you will see under storage that by default, the compression type is page. Okay, let's check the columns. So this is the columns for the main table. And here you can see the column for the history table. So the structure is the same. Okay, let's try to drop a column. So what happened? In the main table, there is no more is-alcoholic column. But of course, no more in the history table. So be aware about the stuff you are doing in the main table, because it will automatically reflect on the history table. Let's add a new column. What happened? Of course, the new column is here, but also is here. Okay, now let's create another, the price list table, and let's see. So this is nice here to look. Since here, you can see that I actually specified the name of the history table, and this is maybe more readable. Okay, let's see if you, for example, have a non-history table. So this is a standard table, like any normal table in the database, and what we must do to create to convert it to system version table. So first, we must add valid from, valid to, and the period of system time. Okay. Secondly, now we can turn on the historization. So we are altering the table, non-history table. We are turning the system version on, and we specify what name of the history table we want to have. Now, if we refresh the tables here, the non-history table is converted to system version table. Okay, now let's try to add 2 columns ported, but now we want to create a computed column, and it will fail. Why it will fail? Because it's impossible to create a computed column in the history table. Okay, so right now, if we check the columns, we only have the new quantity and remarks, but we don't have the total. How can we solve the issue? First, we will turn off the system versioning. And what it's happened now? You see, we have 2 normal tables, the price list and the price list history. We will alter the price list and add a computed column. Okay, now we have here a computed column total, but the structure isn't the same because since here we don't have it. Okay, now we will alter the history table to add this as a normal column, not computed column. Now we have the total. We will update the values in the price history table. And after that, we will turn on the historization on. And now it's nice. So price list, we have the computed column here. And in the history table, we have, sorry, not indexes, but columns. We have the total. Okay. Let's create another table. We have a normal plain table, just for the demo. And here, let's see all the tables in the database. So actually, we have 3 tables, not 7, because 3 are history and, okay. And this, you have the temporal type of 2. So these are the 3 history tables only here. You can see in the temporal table name, you have the name of the table. And also you can see here the history table name. Also, you have something here like history retention period. I will explain later what is this. Let's run this same select without the where statement. We will get, of course, more tables. So here we see all the tables, but some of them are history. So these are the non-history tables, and this one are history tables. Okay. Let's try to drop. So I want to drop price list table. So like I said before, it's impossible to drop the system versioning table while it's turned on. So first we must turn off the feature, and then after that we are able to drop the tables. So no more price list and price list history table. Okay, let's input some demo data. And let's see this. What we have in the main table, we have only the active rows, so not deleted. As you maybe here did see in my demo, I deleted actually the umbrella. So the umbrella is here only in the history table, and you will see actually that the record is valid from. So in this time was inserted, and valid to in this time was deleted. The other records, for example, like let's see, coffee, of course. So this is the main table, and this is the active one. But here you can actually notice all the changes in the coffee record. So first of all, the quantity was 57, 56, 55, and you can order by this date time when the records were updated. Okay, it's easier to use wide word importers, so I can show you next demo. So let's get, we are now interested in only active records. So I want to get some current data from the application country, where country ID is 15. I will run this. I get one record. And if you look at the execution plan, only one table is scanned. So actually, we affected only the table name countries. Okay, but what if we want to get all the data, also history? So if you remember, we can use this syntax here. So I want to get for a country name 15, all the data. I will run this query. I will get for Australia, as you can see, the latest recorded population changed over time, of course, because some are newborns and whatever. And if you look at the execution plan, you will see that SQL Server automatically did touch two tables. So if you are using this system time all, he will go also in the history and in the main table. Of course, you can see here countries, and countries archive is the history table. This is totally same as, for example, if you would type this. So collect columns from countries where country ID is 15, and also union all, select for the same country from countries archive. And the execution plan is pretty much the same. So when using this for system time all SQL Server, you need to specify small queries, of course. Okay. We want to know what was the population in Australia on this date, 2013 year, and so on. So sometimes it's hard to find if you, especially if you have many rows. But by using this for system time as of, you can get one record that was active in this time. Okay. Retention policy. So of course, you can specify a retention policy. Currently on this table, the retention policy is set to infinite, meaning that you will have in the history table infinite data. Okay, let's change this. Let's change the retention policy for countries for only 1 month. Okay, remember that before, when we run this query, we get free records because there are free records for our Australia. And now we will get only one record because we specified actually that we want the system to retain data only for 1 month before. So the system will not delete anything automatically, of course. He will not delete the data from the main table, but he will not show the data from the history table that are older than 1 month. But if we, for example, change the query to not use this for system time all, and if we insist on union all, we will get free records. So this is the proof actually that the records are not deleted. Okay, let's return the retention policy to infinite. And now if we run this query again, we will get free records like before. Okay, how to clean the old data? So you could use TrashDB if you're using Azure, for example. You could use partitioning or even create a custom cleanup script. But if you remember, you cannot delete the data from the history table if the system versioning is turned on. So it's required first to turn the system versioning to off. And that you must have in mind because your system will be somehow offline in that period of time when you are cleaning the old data. Okay, let's return to our demo table. If I want, these are the limitations. If I want to delete records from the history table, I will get an error because I cannot touch the history table. If I want to truncate anything, I'm unable to truncate because while the system versioning is turned on. If I want to alter the history table, it is impossible to do it. If I want to create a trigger, like I said before, it's impossible to create a trigger on the history table. And the last thing, if you want these columns to not be visible, for example, if you have an old application, this is the way to get this. So valid from datetime to generate, and you must specify this hidden attribute. So let's create a hidden table. Let's insert one demo data, and now let's select star from the hidden, and you will not see the start time and the end time. If you want to get these columns, you are required to specify them in the select statement. So this is the only way to get the values of these columns if you hidden them. And this is pretty much all from me. And I'm finished with the demo. Do you hear me, Magnus?
I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Good. When Microsoft introduced SystemVersioned tables or Temporal, I asked the question. I think they had some road shows, and they were on the SQL Nexus conference in Denmark where I was. So I asked the question, when will you implement business Temporal? Because what they did was, in the marketing, they said this is the perfect solution for slowly changing dimensions for data warehouses. And I said, well, it really isn't, because you only track when the change was done in the database. But if you have a latency in that, you have a system where you also track the date of the the business date of an event. A price change, it could be 2 days from now, but you store it in the database now. And then they kind of looked down and looked a bit embarrassed, because I know that DB2 has had Temporal for both system versioning and business versioning for a long time. And they said, well, we're going to implement it in the next version, but I haven't seen any tracks of it being implemented or even being talked about anymore. So I think it's only going to be the system time of a change and nothing else.
We have a question actually in the chat. So
I hadn't seen it. Oh, there it is. Okay.
It's visible. The answer is yes.
Yep. So it's only the select star behavior that changes. And you should never use it anyway.
Yes.
No, but it could very well be that you have some kind of framework that reads the metadata through a select star, where 1 equals 0 or something, to just get the columns.
That's right. Let's wait a few seconds.
I think it's a pity that they don't have the that you don't have any stored procedures for doing the retention, because that would be the natural thing to develop, I think, from Microsoft's point of view, to not have to take the system versioning apart to be able to delete all data.
Yes, I know once on one presentation, Dan Sarko was presenting this, and also he told that actually he's not happy because it seems like Microsoft did half of the job, because they introduced this and they actually, some things are missing that could be nice.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. But it's, and yeah, I think it's a pity, because maybe they realize that not so many use it, so they don't spend time developing on it. But for me, I've had use cases where I just couldn't use it because of the limitations. So if they put in some more work, it would be the perfect fit for some of my use cases. But now I have to roll my own instead.
Okay, next question.
Is it possible to change compression type of history table to column
store? That's
right.
Column store. Now it's page row, or?
Yeah, I think the question is more: is it possible to turn the cluster, turn it into a clustered column store?
Clustered column store index.
Yeah, so that instead of having a clustered index with page compression, to instead just have it as a clustered column store index.
So it's not possible.
Yeah, and I think it is because the primary key is already clustered, right?
Yes.
So you can't have two clustered indexes. So, and I don't think you can drop the primary key of the history table.
Yes, you cannot.
So yeah, changing compression is possible, but not turning it into a column store index.
Yes.
On the other hand, what you usually do with the history table is to do lookups in it. So maybe it's not such a good idea to have a column store index anyway.
Yes. Marcus Pearson, thank you very much. And yes, play with it.
Yeah, it's the only way for many features to play on your own. Let's see what Ani Kumar is typing. It's so interesting to see. You see someone is typing, and then if it takes a long time, you expect a long question, and then sometimes it's just one line. Can you enable temporal on column store table?
Actually, I'm not sure.
It's for you to test, Ani Kumar.
Yes.
I can't see why it wouldn't work, but again, maybe it's not the use case of it. Do you have experience to use temporal tables in TFS? Does TFS generate change script? Do you mean in like SQL Server data tools, or in when deploying as a DAC pack or generating a DAC pack?
I didn't try it.
I haven't tried either, but with a recent version of SSDT, it should work, I guess, because it's this is not the super new. The feature has been there for 5 years, so it would surprise me a lot if SSDT doesn't support it.
What I'm missing here. I wanted to try with.
You have named the defaults, so, and they are have to be database unique. So just put it, yeah.
So I created actually the clustered column store index.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Seems like.
But you can create the non-clustered primary key on a clustered column store, right?
It is necessary or possible to maintain indexes or statistics on history table. Yes, it's possible.
Yeah, and I would say it's both possible and it's as necessary to do it on the history table, because it's going to change and you're going to get fragmentation on, and you're going to get bad statistics on the history table as well.
Emerson said that they use temporal tables, and that is automatically deployed.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Emerson. I hope that I'm pronouncing it well.
No problem. Yeah, so we're Azure Git, but yeah, it's the same method. So you define your script as normal, and it automatically creates the table in the background, or with a name if you've given it. So.
Cool.
Okay. Are there any questions, or we will finish and go to drink coffee?
Yeah, I think it's coffee time. I just have one question for you, Damir.
Yes.
Have you used system versioning in a system that you built? I mean, a live system.
Actually, yes.
Okay, you're one of the few that I know that actually uses it.
But on actually, I used it for some user data columns, tables, and so on, for example. Because one time a customer wanted actually to charge if the user changed something. So then it was a nice idea to use SystemVersioned table.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have used it for a configuration table, and
yes,
it wasn't really a requirement to use it, but I wanted to know who made changes to it constantly. So
yes.
So I added the user or the login of whoever wrote the latest update, and that way I could track the changes that were done and who did.
Okay. So
Yes.
One more time, thank you for having me as a speaker.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that you're a returning speaker too. You were the first speaker on SQL Friday.
Yes, of course. So let's wait for the next year and we can find some nice thing to speak about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so people, bye and have a nice day.
And you, Damir, see you around.
Yeah, see you. Bye.
Bye.